Giant FM with practically a week to go until May the 3rd is finally here, and we'll be ready for the countdown of votes coming up at the end of that 6 p.m. and the, finally setting the stage for if there will be general elections down the road. But this primary election season is close to being done. We're joined in the studio once again by Republican candidate for sheriff Steve Hibbler. He is running things in Cloverdale now, but looking to be a candidate here for the sheriff's position in Putnam County. Thanks for coming in again.
Thanks for having me again.
You have had a busy stretch in Cloverdale that we've talked some about since you've been serving in that position, but especially as of late. Wanted to have you talk a little bit about Thursday night, and then I think maybe we can tie that into community policing and some other things we have talked about.
Yes, there's probably several things we could tie that particular evening into, but I've got an absolutely fantastic department in Cloverdale. The officers are committed. They're a team, very team-focused, team-oriented. And I've got a young officer down there, Daniel Warren. He's a Cloverdale grad, 2014 grad, went in the Marine Corps, spent 4 years in the Marine Corps. Came out and came to work for the Cloverdale Police Department and has done a phenomenal job. And, early last week, got information, actually ended up recovering 27 grams of methamphetamine from an individual, which led to an arrest warrant. And, in a lot of cases, the story would stop there. You get the 27 grams of meth, you get a good felony arrest warrant, you serve the arrest warrant, and you're done.
That's a job well done in and of itself.
It's a job well done in most people's eyes. Hey, great, you got that off the street. But, when we talk about my platform, I talk about community policing, I talk about proactive policing. And you asked me the last time we talked the difference between reactive and proactive. Well, reactive, you basically, you get the job done, you take the report. Getting the warrant is, a lot of officers do those type of things, but the level he went to and the proactivity he went to, he ended up writing 2 search warrants based on the arrest. The first search warrant was location in Cloverdale, which led to the recovery of a marijuana grow in the attic of a garage. And the second warrant, after they served the first one, they got some additional information, and they called me. And I was actually out at a campaign thing, and I ceased and had to switch from my campaign hat, literally go home, get it into uniform, get in my car, and Mark on the air and headed to meet up with them. And we went to an area around Mount Meridian and served the second search warrant. And there recovered about a half a pound of cocaine, over 20 ounces of methamphetamine, and about a quarter pound of marijuana. And it'll ultimately lead to a couple more arrest warrants and going after some other individuals. But the bigger story here is you take a look at the philosophy we built into our department about we take this thing on to that next step, and stay proactive. And I know, one of my competitors out there has talked about, sending mental health teams out to situations with drug use and so on. And while there's certainly time and place for, where people need help, and there's mental health is certainly an issue in Putnam County, this is a clear example where this is a lifestyle choice. And one of the individuals arrested had bragged that he was the biggest drug dealer in Putnam County. Now, whether that's true or not, who knows? But this was a pretty sizable arrest, and our officers, worked well. And the follow-on story was not only my one individual officer, but we've got 6 merit officers on our department, 5 of which have got enforcement powers. 1 is our evidence technician, administrative. And all 6, including myself, were out that night. But the real interesting part is my entire reserve officer crew came out. And these are unpaid individuals who've all got jobs that they had to report to Friday morning. And they were out with us to wee hours of the morning on this operation. And, when we had the meet the candidate or the debate at DePaul, and Rodney Klein brought up the fact about, what are you going to do to retain officers? And I talked about, the leadership is a part of it, the culture, the atmosphere. And we built such an atmosphere down in the Cloverdale Police Department, is evident that night, that we had these officers all want to be there, to show up. And on top of it, we had Randy Patrick from the Sheriff's Department, who's a longtime friend of mine, good guy, great officer that assisted us. And we had a very successful evening out there. So, as you move forward and you look at this stuff, certainly we want to be able to get people. If you got people who've got a drug issue, a substance abuse issue, we want to get them help. And I've got, track record on this. So it's not something I want to do. It's something I have done when I was jail commander. 92% of the inmates that would come in would indicate they have a substance abuse issue. Usually at the point of arrest is not the time that they're going to want to get help. They got to dry up. They got to get off the stuff for a little bit. And usually when they sit in the jail for a little bit and they come down off of whatever they're on, and they have a little bit of soul searching, and that's when they start reaching out and wanting to get some real help. And when we ran the My Steps program, talking about individual accountability, about the people, places, and things, what they do, and tried to change the way in which they think. And it seemed to work. 200 inmates graduate from that program. I don't have a good percentage, but I would guesstimate probably 25 to 30% of those people got the message and have stayed away and stayed off. And probably one of our things is make the rest of your life the best of your life, and they've truly done that. And they come up with great pride when they see me on the street to let me know, hey, Marshall, thank you. I got your message. I'm doing this now. I've got this success now. My family's here now. I've just got my bachelor's degree done. And they take a lot of pride in the fact that, they have made mistakes or not. We all make mistakes. But they want to pick up and learn from it. There is a certain section of the public, though. Like I said, it's a lifestyle choice. Some of the users have no desire to want to do that. And as much as family members or law enforcement, we want them to stop, until they're ready to stop, they're going to continue to use. Which is why we've taken the approach in working with the prosecutor's office, and I got to go back and give kudos. The night of that arrest on Thursday night, we talked to the deputy prosecutors. I personally spoke with Mr. Bookwalter and got great support from the prosecutor's office. And, when we look at this stuff and we move forward, we know we target the drug dealers. I mean, you've got to start there and target those drug dealers. They're providing the poison out here. And I'll say that my experience as jail commander, we did have mental health issues that would come into the jail. Sometimes that's the easy fix. You just take them to the jail. But it's probably more in a 25, 30 percentile opposed to the 92% who are using. And in most of those cases, and in fact, some I know particularly where I've dealt with them years ago and see them today, it's the prolonged use of the drugs that has created the mental issue after the fact. Some of the methamphetamines being cut with some horrendous things these days. And
fentanyl is a big word.
Fentanyl is a big thing. And I mean, they've horse tranquilizer and whatever they can to make the product expand or get more out of what they're selling. And the long-term effects are really messing with some of the people. And you're seeing a lot of mental health issues cropping up out of that. So if you go back to, traditional police 101 problem solving, you take a look at that, and the root cause of this stuff is those drug dealers are pushing poison on the street for profit. It's a lifestyle choice. And while there's things we want to do, and it's nice, those warm, fuzzy things and helping and whatever, you got to do some of the hard law enforcement, hard work approach. And people need to be arrested. They need to be held accountable and taken off the streets. And last, Thursday night, we were able to take a good portion of drugs off the streets.
When you talk about an event, a singular event like Thursday night with the arrest and basically an all-hands-deck approach by the officers within that department, you've had an all-hands-on-deck approach as well by just being visible with officers. I'm not talking about making an arrest. I'm not talking about handling a particular scene. I'm just saying they are seen, and I know that's been important to you.
One of the frustrations, we've been on the campaign trail for 18 months now, and I've talked to people, from Russellville to Heritage Lake to Fillmore, Reelsville, here in Greencastle, Cloverdale, all over the county. And they want to see officer presence. And if you understand, and we talked before about the art and science of police work. Science are all the certificates and certifications and training and retraining and so on. The art part is understanding the job, having done it and done those things and done it well. And when you take a look at those things, you realize that the first level of deterrence is officer presence. When I went to Cloverdale, one of the big things the council talked to me about was nobody saw police officers in Cloverdale. And I've changed that. And now you go down there and, people will tell you that you see police officers everywhere. In fact, I'm the chief. My administrative guy has to call me and get me to come in the PD if somebody comes on station to see me because I'm out on patrol. I'm out talking to the business owners. I'm out talking to residents in the community. And the other part of that goes into the community policing, is the fact that, when the bad guy sees, and people who want to do bad in your community see the police and the public talking, communicating, that's a whole nother level of officer presence. That's community law enforcement working together presence that sets the message and sends a very clear, unspoken message to those wanting to do bad in the community that, hey, they're all talking here, and they're probably they know one another, and I probably better stay away from that. And like I said, when I was jail commander, the inmates used to tell us, if you want to do drugs, sell drugs, go to Cloverdale. I went there not that long ago, and they said, if you want to go to jail, you go down there. And they know, so they're beginning to know there's a change in this. And we've had some informants that have talked about, the drug dealers don't want to come into town because, they're getting arrested down there. Mm-hmm. Well, why is that not around the rest of the county? We don't want that in our county at all. And so that's one of the initiatives when I talk about our platform and in the sense of the community policing, working, educating the public, because an informed public, an educated public works well with law enforcement, and they know that we're partners. We're not the traditional sheepdog thing where they fear the sheepdog more than they do the wolf. But when we take a look at the proactive policing, then that's why we talk about a crime task force. And you take and tie those two things together. In one example, I know we discussed earlier, is you take all the items you have around your home. They have things of value. They have serial numbers and things on it. A lot of cases in law enforcement, it becomes an insurance exercise. Somebody comes to your house, steals your stuff. You call the police. They come out, take a report. You don't have any of that stuff recorded down, serial numbers. So they're going to give you a report. You turn to your insurance company, and they're going to give you whatever the market value is of your stuff, and you'll buy new stuff. Well, there's no accountability on the person who stole from you because it's very difficult to tie them back in. So educating the public through community policing and getting out there and having programs where you go out and talk about active citizens academies, and you talk about the importance of having an inventory at your home. Not because we want to know, that you've got a Pioneer stereo or you got this, that, and the other, but you record those serial numbers. In the event that person comes in there and steals from you, we can take and record that stuff down into the computer system, so when some officer at 2:30, like last night, we had on the Thursday night, we had a lot of items that we were in serial numbers on, and nothing came back, but we suspect are probably in question. But if it's not recorded and reported, then when the officer finds that stuff, you can't connect it to the crime, because there's a lot of Pioneer stereos out there.
Sure are, right.
But yours has got this specific serial number. And when we educate the public the importance of having home inventories that record all that stuff, and it happens fewer times than you'd think that somebody actually has taken the time to do that. Most of the time, I don't know, and we can't do much with it. So getting the public and the police working together and understanding the importance of that relationship and how it sets us up for success to do our jobs better. The ultimate thing is, let's get these criminals who are doing this crime in our community. And that's why the crime task force we're talking about looks strategically at what's going on in the county. A lot of the people in the drug business who want to go buy drugs from the people like we arrested Thursday night, and they need to get the funds for it, are going to come take your catalytic converter off your vehicle, or they're going to come get whatever to try to convert it to cash so they can go buy their drugs.
Yeah. The words pro-Constitution have become especially mentioned as of late with the signage by the governor, not worried about permits anymore as far as handling guns. What does the word pro-Constitution mean to you in relation to being sheriff of this county?
Well, it's kind of funny when we have to say pro-Constitution, because every citizen should support the Constitution. I've spent 40 years of my life wearing police uniforms and military uniforms, sworn to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And it's sad in the time that now we have to specify that out. I know a year ago I signed a petition for Putnam County to be a Second Amendment sanctuary county, and several people have asked me, why? Why would you do that? Why do we need to do that? And I point to the fact my son lives out in Seattle. I just recently visited him, and where they passed some laws on magazine restrictions, magazine bans and such. And while I was visiting, I said, well, son, how's that working out here? He says, in around the big cities, Seattle, Tacoma, Olympia, he says, you can't find, magazine capacities. However, in all the sanctuary counties out there, you can still go in a gun store, and they're still selling them. And basically, the sheriff's departments and the police departments out there have taken a pretty, the Constitution is pretty straightforward. Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the citizens to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Pretty clear. especially when you think in terms of that Constitution, that Second Amendment wasn't written for you. It was written by you to restrain our government from overreach. And when you take a look at a county level, your elected sheriff is that first line of defense to protect the citizens' rights. The sheriff and his deputies.
Tell me about, when it comes to a sheriff running for office, it's not like a president and a vice president who run for office together, but there certainly often is a number two that is very prominent as far as people know they're associated together. Tell me about the person who will come into office with you if you're elected.
Absolutely. When I decided to start this campaign over 18 months ago, one of the first individuals I spoke to, other than my wife, was Tony Portwood, one of my lifelong friends. He's currently an Indiana State Trooper in his 37th year. He is a fantastic, outstanding officer and individual. When he graduated, he came on state police 2 years after I did, but he was ranked number one in his class when he graduated. In fact, if everybody in the county knows Phil Parker, who was Scott Stockton's chief deputy, first go-around, Tony and Phil were in the same class. Only I like pointing out the fact that Tony was number one in that class. But Tony has spent most of his career, we worked the road together, did a lot of things together there, and then Tony went into major drug enforcement and worked that for a number of years, about 15 years, undercover drug operations. Currently does intel operations with Indiana State Police and is poised that when I'm elected, he will retire from the department and come on as my chief deputy. He's also the defensive tactics and combatives and instructor for the Indiana State Police, so brings a wealth of well-rounded information and to the department. So on day one that we would take office, we'd have combined almost 80 years of law enforcement experience the two of us have. And I'd put him up to really anybody else. Sometimes I'm thinking, well, he's probably the second best candidate for sheriff in the county, but
we need to have Tony in the studio at the same time.
We
see
certainly,
what the response to that would be.
Well, usually he will talk about that and look, and he just says, yeah, we've known each other a long time. He's just weathered it better than me.
This election, I think you even mentioned 18 months. It's longer than the typical with the way that it fell on the calendar, and candidates were out there making themselves visible as early as the summertime a year ago. So it can get long. I'm sure there's a lot of enjoyment to it. I joke with candidates, I wonder how much weight you put on because of pancake breakfasts and that kind of thing. You had a particularly enjoyable moment, and strangely enough, it tied in with a little bit of your history, too.
It was probably the highlight of my campaign so far, Miss Liliana. I was leaving my house. I was actually heading to an event to talk at one of the local nursing homes. And as I'm driving up the street, there's a particular section that I've been wanting to get a sign. You know, it's all about signs, right? And,
Sure.
and it's one area I had no sign. And I saw her out struggling with a trash can, and I stopped my vehicle, and I got out, and she saw me approaching her, and she had this look of like, oh, my gosh, here comes a big guy. What's going on here?
Yeah.
And I said, ma'am, I'm running for sheriff. And we started talking. I distinctly, right away, I could recognize a distinct accent. And as she's trying to explain to me, oh, this is just my friend's house, I'm trying to get her trash can up, and I helped her with that. We got talking. I said, ma'am, where are you from? And she said, oh, you must guess. And I said, okay, Russia. And she says, oh, no, guess again. I said, Bosnia. She goes, yes, I'm from Bosnia. I said, well, dobro dan, kako ste, kako ste vi? And she's like, which is the greeting of the day in Bosnia. And she's, oh, you speak Serbo, you know. And so we started a great conversation, found out she's actually from Tuzla, where I was based out of.
Okay.
And then we started talking about places like Doboj and Brčko district and Zvornik, and then I mentioned Hampiesak and Sarajevo. And we just had a delightful conversation. And I had to break contact because I had to get to my engagement, but she did tell me, she goes, you like burek? I said, yes, I like burek. She goes, you come to my house. I fix you burek, which is a traditional Bosnian meat and cheese pies.
Okay.
And so you talk about gaining weight. Wow.
Oh, there you go.
So, but that put a smile on my face the rest of the day. And she indicated, she says, oh, you got my vote. I tell my friends. And I said, well, I appreciate that, ma'am. So that was one of the absolute highlights of the 18 months.
You'd run across somebody from Mexico or name any one of 20 countries, I would not have been surprised. But you tell me of Bosnia, and you caught me off guard on that one.
She caught me off guard on that one, absolutely.
The hours are getting pretty thin as we get down to May the 3rd. Wish you best of luck and the final countdown here.
Well, and we had the Lincoln Day dinner the other night.
Oh, yes, yes.
And I had the opportunity to give a little bit of a speech at the Lincoln Day dinner. And one of the things that, I talked about, when you come right down to it, I think it was the 19th of April, which was Patriots Day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yes.
And we're talking about 1775 on April 19th, 70 patriots gathered on Lexington Green where the shot heard around the world. Since that time, we've been a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And that's kind of drifted a little bit as people have kind of backed away from things. And I explained to the crowd there that night at the Lincoln Day dinner that when you really think about this election season, and it's easy to think about us because we got our signs, our names are out there everywhere, and that's the whole idea. However, this isn't about us. It's not about any single candidate that you bring in this studio. It's about the citizens. It's about the citizens having the proper representation to do what they're basically hiring somebody to do for them. And that's what I take a lot of pride in, the fact of running for sheriff of this county. I've been a state trooper. I've been appointed by a state police superintendent, accepted by a state police board. I've been hired by a mayor to be a city police chief. I work for a city council. In Cloverdale, I got hired by the town council. I work at the pleasure of the president of the council. This one, I work directly for the citizens doing their work. And if I can get their vote on May 3rd, I promise them, Tony Portwood and I, and our team we assemble, will put in hard work every single day. They'll see us out in the community,